But now it's about, okay, well, when you can keep inching higher like this, the market's kind of front running the Fed. It's easing, it's pushing back the Fed. You see that in rate hike expectations. But at some point, we'll admit this: the last two times we had the beginning of significant rate cuts, that's when bear markets got started.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Mike, but I do think, just to kind of be clear on this, I don't think the Fed really cares the market, where the stock market goes, except if it gets inflationary because of it marching higher and asset inflation causing broader inflation. But as far as the market correcting, I don't think that's going to tip them off to lower rates. What's going to happen is you're going to find some sort of disruption in the treasury market. And Mike, this, being a bond trader for so many years, I mean, it's all they really care about is making sure that the treasuries, they have enough liquidity. And
that's not the Fed's job in theory, right? That's the Treasury's job. Here you go. Listen, you just teed this up, James. So I got to ask you this from Lawrence Lepard, obviously your friend. Gross issuance of U.S. Treasuries quarterly. Wow, back to COVID levels. So you can see bonds, notes, bills now back to where we were with COVID. So the Fed can say they're doing whatever they want, but we know what the Treasury is doing.
But remember, the Fed and the Treasury work together to ensure that the Treasury market is liquid, and you saw that happen back in the Silicon Valley Bank situation, and you saw it back in COVID and March.
A year in interest payments as part of our budget deficit. We are literally not getting past the event horizon of a debt-fueled collapse. It's not going to happen. Now, could we postpone it for a decade or two? I hope so, because to be blunt, I don't want to see America having to do what Brazil has done. There's a reason Brazil's currency is called the real, which is the real. It's because they had the Cruzeiro, then the real Cruzeiro, and then the real, because every once in a while they have to reset their friggin' currency and forgive all their debts and start. Yes, a reset is going to be necessary, but it's going to be a long time before our Fed decides to abandon the dollar as a reserve currency. So what's the most likely scenario? The most likely scenario is the Fed is going to accommodate fiscal stimulus because neither party has the guts to cut spending. I mean, nobody is going to want to touch Social Security, which is an absolute train wreck coming. I mean, there's no doubt, right? So, we all see it. Everyone knows that. So they're going to continue to fund. That's what I think. So I think that liquidity is going to continue to enter this market.
Eventually, the chickens are going to come home to roost. You're going to have a recession. You're going to. Why? Because this is what we've built. This is the system of manipulation. This is how the central banks work. This is where we're headed. There's just no way around it. The only question is, how much fiscal stimulus are they going to issue and spend, and how the deficits that we're running they're mind-boggling. $2 trillion deficits at a time we're not even in a recession. $2 trillion deficits while the unemployment is near its lows of all time. Like, this is just insanity. So I don't know when it happens, but when it does, it feels like it's going to be big. That's my take on it.
Dave, before you jump in, James, you showed me yours, so I'll show you mine. We've done this countless times. I've showed this, but I just want to reiterate, guys. Blue is the yield curve inverted, right? Red is Fed funds rate, so you get the pause and then the pivots, just so you see, and the black is the.
Just to give context to Dave's comments there.
But the point that I'm trying to get at here is typical things. I mean, the funny thing is Mike and I like to jibe Mike because I can't help it. It's easy to tweak. But the fact is, we both agree a reset is coming. The difference is we disagree on the type of reset. I just think the type of reset will be more the crack up boom style, inflationary, asset inflationary first, then things get out of control style, and he thinks it'll be a major recession, depression style. And look, who knows? I just think the politicians have every incentive in the world to do my thing, because generally these things take long enough that they could get themselves reelected. In a job lot losing recession, they don't get reelected. And so I like to follow the money, and frankly, that's why I think the way I do. I also think that we saw something, and Mike and I totally agree on this one. Totally unprecedented stimulus when we had the recession. When he talks about flooding the world with liquidity, remember.
Enough in Argentina, if hyperinflation actually happened, that you elect a candidate who does talk about those things. But we don't have any candidates seriously talking about this.
It started last week.
That's not true.
It started last week. Republican
won't
a headline. Actually, Walter Mondale proved that. We will raise your taxes. That just the other side, the Republicans won't tell you. Remember, he didn't win that election. But the headline last week, I was shocked by it. The Republicans are starting to hint at Republican plan to raise retirement age draws election here heat. Now, we all know at some point this has to happen. I mean, the average death is not 65 anymore; it's closer to 80. That's changed since Social Security. It just has to happen. Just a matter of time. We can put it in increment. But that actually came out last week. I thought that would tip off you, James, and maybe you, Dave, too. But I just saw the headline and I'm like, okay, Trump is actually exploring that. But let's look at two key things about a crack up boom. We've had it. The S&P 500 is the most expensive versus GDP since 1937 or 33, I think.
And after that age, you can no longer run for president or Senate or the House and make that as the trade. I mean, I'd love to make that as a grand bargain, but that's neither here nor there. But the key point here is you keep talking about beta. I mean, I want to put Bitcoin off to the side for a second. I do want to get back to that, but beta. Gold is essentially a measuring stick, and it's telling you that people see the currency being debased. The S&P is a liquidity vehicle. The rich have money there, and where are you going to put it? And so that's why it's been going there, and it's been effectively managed. I mean, the S&P has been managed in much the same way. People think that there's the plunge protection team. Everyone believes that if the S&P has a major correction, and this is unprecedented. I mean, Mike, when's the last time in history, or has there ever been one, where there hasn't been a 10% correction for the period of time we're in now?
It's very rare.
I'm not sure it's ever happened. And so, when you look at that, it's very clear that we have a two-tiered market. For all the histrionics from Elizabeth Warren and her millionaire's tax and other unconstitutional acceptance, and that's the tweet that I made this morning. The fact is the market is pricing the probability of Bitcoin achieving gold status at less than 10%. That's what it is. That's what they're saying. And Bitcoiners think it's 100%. And so Bitcoiners hold and won't sell, except for the fund living expenses, which is perfectly reasonable. That's my approach. Someone tells me something is 10x. And I think it's going to 10x, and I think the probability is really high. They're going to vote it. But the market is not pricing it that way, which tells you that the probability can't be 100. It can't probably be 70. And the market is pricing it at 10%. So as you get more and more people being sold that probability should be high by Fidelity, BlackRock, and others, that chance increases. I think that we are way underpricing the probability of Bitcoin being accepted. Valued wampum, seashells, as money. And then the whole world said, well, that's terrible. Seashells are easier to find. We got this whole new world with all these beaches the seashells watch up on. Okay, crap. That's not so good. And then they said, well, gold is hard to get, and that's fine. Or look at what happened to silver when we found, the various big loads of silver relative to gold. I mean, and God knows what happens to gold if we actually do find the way to mine an asteroid that's mostly gold. I mean, who knows? But the fact is that we don't know what happens when we get a new store of money. It's been thousands of years. It really has.
There's a similar adoption going on with Bitcoin and reluctance to believe in it, just like people didn't believe that consumers who put their credit cards online to buy things on Amazon. There's a similar skepticism about it, that it's not worth anything. I don't understand it. It could just be copied. It could be replicated. What if Satoshi shows up and decides that he wants to double the distribution of coins? What if he wants to dump his million coins on the market? There's so much